Thank you so much. Well, it really is amazing to, it was amazing to sit there and listen to you, Hung, as you discussed that, because I do remember that time when you cried. And as a matter of fact, it wasn't a blog post yet. It was a little picture I drew for you in your notebook, if I'm not mistaken. And so talking with you about it and seeing how you responded was one of the things that really caused me to connect with this idea of intention versus being in tension. And the basic bottom line of that is, and I'll tweet out the article with the hashtag for Culture Summit on it later today, but the idea is all of us are born with a purpose and an intention that we're here to fulfill in life. And when we're very, very young, we know what that purpose is. We know what that intention is. But as we begin to learn and we begin to transfer our intelligence in the way we process information over from a very experiential and very intuitive and emotionally intelligent, and even, if you will, a spiritual or very, sort of soul-driven way of understanding the world, we transfer it over at around age 3 to our brains, largely to our prefrontal cortex. And at that point, our brain takes over, and actually the algorithms of our brain processing shift, and they point us in a new direction. And what they say is what you feel, what you experience, what you sense is not reality anymore, but what you judge is. And we move from a sensing and a perceiving and a feeling way of experiencing and living the world to a very cognitive way of receiving information, processing, forming judgments on it. That's a really important theme for the talk that I'm going to share with you today. And if you think about the difference, even as I feel so lucky to be speaking first thing this morning, because what I hope to do is lay out a framework for a lot of the really specific and actionable things that you're going to be learning today. But think about this idea of intention. Every person in this room, every person that you will see when you walk on the street today, when you get in your car at your garage, when you order a coffee, when we gather later this evening for wine, every person you go back to on Monday who comes to their job putting on a smile, whether they're engaged or disengaged, doing a great job, doing an okay job, not knowing what job they're doing, all of them have something inside that says, I am more than this. I am more than what you see. Some of this does not make sense to me. Help me find my true self in this place so that I can be an extraordinary contributor. And that really is, I think, the heart of what we're here for at Culture Summit. So I hope we're on the same page with that. And with that, I'm going to move into a little talk I've prepared for you. But first, can I ask you a favor? Can I take your picture from up here and tweet it later? Because you all are amazing. And oh, that was good to see. And I numbered my cards.
You take the picture. I'll get the cards.
Right? You all... This is the first Culture Summit taken from on stage. You all are fantastic. And I've already met someone in this audience this morning just speaking who has a job. Brian, what's your title? Where are you, Brian? Employee experience. Head of Employee Experience? The first person I speak to today has a job called, well, one of the first I spoke to, if you had Head of Employee Experience. It was like you were sent to set up my talk today, so thank you. Okay. So you have to allow me to do one more thing, and that is, if my cards got out of order here, roll with me. Can I thank you in advance? Oh, and there's one more thing I'm going to do. We're going to talk about how design thinking is, how culture is design thinking applied to creating an extraordinary company. Design thinking applied to creating an extraordinary company. So we're going to talk a little bit about design thinking now. And I believe all good design thinking has to begin with, no surprise here, an intention. So I'm going to share my intention with you. And I would love feedback at the end so I can make it better for future conferences. But it's to really get you thinking about this part of people and how that fits into building an extraordinary company. So I really am going to push us into who people are inside, not only their performance, but really who they are as people, and that is such a key part of an extraordinary company. I would love feedback on that at the end. Okay, we ready to go? Okay, first slide. Zen and the art of building, oh, thank you. Important detail, thank you. Zen and the art of building a great team. Has anyone ever heard of a book called Zen and the Art of well, this isn't it, but Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance? Would you raise your hand very high if anyone here has read that book? Okay. Now, who has read it in the last 2 years? Oh, this is great. When I come back, if I'm ever lucky enough to come back, I want to ask the question again. I want to see a lot more hands. This is not a fun book to read. It is not an easy book to read. It took me 20 years to slog through it, and I'm not joking. And once I succeeded, I realized it was the most important book I've ever met in my life. What the book explores is the price we've paid as human beings for believing that everything in the world is of the mind, stuff we can rationalize, and how rational thinking has shaped and really dominated Western culture, which is now dominating global culture, for the past 2,600 or so years, ever since the time of, what's from Greek philosophy. And what it does is it wanders back to times earlier in human history where we believed our intelligence was more than of our minds. We had intuition, we had other senses, we were connected with other forces in nature, and they served us well. But more and more as we move to our data, to our mind, we are cutting off other things that are really important for us as human beings. And the book is really about the journey of one man who is a scientist, a genius, and a hyper-intellectual genius and scientist, and what happens to him inside and through perception of society when he crosses over to a more mystical side, a deeper understanding. He goes to a state that some might call enlightenment, but that modern society called schizophrenia, and treated with electric shock therapy. And it's about his journey to rationalize those two domains and integrate them into a whole person. Why is this book so relevant now? At a time where we are also data-driven, we're also staring at our data. We're talking about, everything can be measured, everything can be proven. There is more. Even the great neuroscientists, Nobel Prize-worthy researcher, neuroscientist, father of cognitive neuroscience, Michael Gazzaniga, said at the end of his decade after decade career, at the very end, there were questions about the brain that could not be answered by anything that the brain did, and that there was something more. Some call it the mind, some call it the spirit, some call it the consciousness, but there was something more that was managing, driving, changing the way the brain worked that could not be pinned down in anything scientific. And I think we can't prove that, we can't disprove that, but I think it's a very important thing as we talk about Zen and the art of building a great team, to remember there is more to this than meets the eye, and not all of this is the science and data of being a great manager. It's the people part of being a great manager. Okay, so we have some cute animal pictures here. Why do you think we have cute animal pictures? How did you feel when you saw them? Did it catch you a little off guard? You're like, what the heck, cute animal pictures? Did anybody smile? Okay, good, great. That's all. And by the way, I have one more, we'll get back to that later. I have one more hand occupied than I planned to, so thanks for bearing with me. So this is me. I'm an Apple and Google alum, lucky me. I stumbled onto Apple when I was 23 years old, fresh out of college. It wasn't really a stumble. I got a rejection letter, and I challenged it, and I ended up getting hired, which was really great. But why I fell in love with Apple, and again, on my Medium page, there's a great story about this, was seeing that beautiful 6-color logo. You know, when I applied for Apple from the San Jose Mercury News, I didn't know I was going to get a rejection letter, nor did I know that the envelope that would contain the rejection letter would be this beautiful thing with a rainbow apple on it. And when I looked at that apple, I said, any company that would make it something that beautiful is a company that I want to work for. And I called the person whose name was on my rejection letter, and I ended up talking my way into a job, which I kind of still don't know how I had the audacity to do that, but I'm really glad I did. But I bring that Apple thing up as you think about culture and identity, and every touch point of the experience that you're creating, everything matters and makes a difference, so I wanted to mention that. I've been an entrepreneur 4 times. One of them is current, and I'll tell you about it today, but I've had 2 small home-based businesses in design that I ran when my children were growing up so I could have part-time work from home. I had one early Facebook application for list making that went very well for a number of years, but that I stopped when I joined Google. These days I do a lot of writing, speaking, and teaching about things like gender, ethics, culture, innovation, the spirit of people, and all that we have to accomplish as we move forward. So thanks for letting me add to that today. I love studying neuroscience, mindfulness, design thinking. Spoke with someone from the D School earlier today. Ancient wisdom and physics, and you'll hear little kisses of all of those things throughout the talk today. I work as a coach and an advisor, and for the next 5 months, I'm going to be helping a new startup here in San Francisco come to market. So I have a lot of fun, and I love talking with people like you. So another thing, the first thing I want to say in culture, the most important thing is to know your why. Did everybody like this cute animal picture? That's so cute. Doesn't he look like he's thinking about why? That does not look like a disengaged monkey employee to me. That monkey looks like he's just happy to have his blankie and just ponder the universe. So most of us go about life talking about what we do, right? If I were to go up to you and say, tell me about your company, most of you would probably tell, maybe you wouldn't, it's a culture group, but maybe you would tell me what you make, what your product does, but nobody starts a company so people can type on keyboards and store info to disks. That's not why you start a company. It's what you do, but how you do it, creating a beautiful experience, making things easier than they've ever been before, having the logo have a 6-color, look that shows people there's more to this than meets the eye. But most importantly, we want to think about why we want to do things. Why do we do these things? Nobody, like Steve Jobs, Steve Wozniak, they didn't start Apple to make keyboards or Macintoshes or iPods or anything like that. Really what Steve wanted to do was to unleash the hidden talent and potential in every person and make it easier for them than ever before to show that to the world. That was really a stated and implicit intention about Apple, and that is a why. So when we think about whys, we want to help people unleash hidden talents, make things more reliable or secure or safe. We want to help parents sleep better at night knowing their babies are in good health. We want to make it easy for people to learn new skills. So, let's take a company like lynda.com, really successful company. Lynda.com didn't say, we want to start a company to make the world's largest repository of learning videos that people can access by subscription, morning, noon, or night, no matter where they are in the globe, learn new skills, and eventually exit to LinkedIn. No, their why was there are a whole bunch of new things that are happening in the world, and in order for people to get the most out of their career, they're going to need to keep learning about those things. Let's make it easier than it could possibly have been ever before for them to learn new technical and professional skills. That's a why. So again, I dropped a few of these cards, so forgive me, but I'll show you what why looks like. This is something really important for culture designers to think about. And why is great, but the best thing about why is it's really easy to connect on a why level to other people's whys. So if I have a company have a why that says, I want to help people discover their deepest talents, or I want to help people get better and better every day at a certain skill, it's very easy to find someone, an individual, who says, gosh, I've been an athlete all my life, or I've worked as an artist for all of my life, but I want to keep getting better and better at being an artist. You can connect on a why level to that constant improvement, to that real meaning of intention thing, and get beneath the what so that you can actually bring people into your work environment who might have very different backgrounds or very different core skills, but they're able to apply an aligned why to your bigger vision. Does that make sense to you all? So talking about the why gets beneath a lot of this stuff and lets you tap much more deeply into the real people that you're bringing into your company. So here's an example of a what. We make ink-filled rods that you can hold in your hands and draw a line on papers. What's the product I'm talking about here? Pen, right? Our smooth rollers on high-quality ink makes it easier for you to put your words on paper. Okay, we're getting better, little how. Let's get into why. We believe writing should be easy, dependable, satisfying any kind of paper. We help people release the great ideas they have inside them. That's a why. So there was a discussion on Quora a number of months back. It said, how would Steve Jobs have sold a pen? And that really helped me clarify some of this why thinking. And I think the way he would have sold a pen is said, have you ever felt like you have one great story inside you? That's how Steve Jobs would have sold a pen. That's a why. And that makes a big difference in the way people experience what you're doing. Back to the cute animal pictures. I'm going to tell you now why I did them. This is done for a little brain hack that we're doing. It's really easy to sit in a room, listen to somebody up there, talking, and you might be liking what I'm saying, you might not be liking what I'm saying, but after a while, our brains automatically, because they're such efficient machines, shift into something where we start to process information really unconsciously. And anyone who's designing a culture should know that. The best person in your company, the most dedicated, the most creative, the most inspired, any of them from time to time are still going to lapse into unconscious thinking. When you can come along with a little jolt, like a cute animal picture, or a different type of conversation, or even something where on a Friday afternoon everybody goes and sits at a different desk, you're actually reactivating the conscious and cognitive processing centers, taking ordinary routines out of unconscious bias and moving it into more creative and useful processing centers. Perfect case in point. If you drive home from here today, as you get close to your home, you're going to stop looking at street signs. 10 minutes. And then questions and answers?
No, that's it.
Oh, hello. Wow. Okay. We'll come back to that another time. This is really important. Thanks for letting me be like this with you. I wish I could talk all day, but okay, hire for care. The most important thing that culture shapers can do is to show up and to really connect with people and find out what they care about. What you care about fuels everything else in your life. It gives you inspiration, motivation, direction. When you are passionate about something, you can find things in that passion that you can direct to almost any other purpose in life. If Hung's manager had said to him, what do you care about? He goes, I really like to see people thrive. She could have worked with him to say, how can we find ways for people to thrive in your job? What 2 things could you do in the next month that would help 1 or 2 of your coworkers start to really thrive and engage more? Suddenly, something you cared about would have been activated in a way that made you productive to your job. Any of us, all of us in this room, have the ability and the opportunity to connect with people what they care about and be intelligent enough to apply that care toward the work that they do so that they do better work. The next thing is respect. And I don't mean respect like, hello, nice to meet you, I respect you. I mean going deeper to that, to a true almost namaste level of respect, where we understand all people that we work with are truly people. They all face challenges, they all face obstacles, they all have hopes, frustrations. We are people who are navigating life together, and one of the main ways we do that is through our work. Deep respect for other people and understanding that they have struggles, that they are not superficial individuals who are just sitting in the desk putting on a smile saying, sure, everything's going great, but really humanizing the work experience is a key foundation to building a culture. And this should happen across your organization as well as individual to individual. The other thing, this one is called Go Beneath the Salad Bar. Go beneath the salad bar means you can give employees all the benefits in the world, but they're useless unless you really understand why you're giving them these benefits. So apply design thinking to the good things you do to make culture in your company. You can have the salad bar, and the motivation between a salad bar or a food bar that is there to make sure that people stay and work during lunch so you have more productivity out of them, and a salad bar that says we want to create an environment where people really talk, connect, where we show them that it's important to be healthy and balanced people. The differences between the intentions of those salad bars is really important. And by the way, if you go beneath the salad bar, you never know what you might find. See, it works. Keep it real. You know, I like both of these pictures. They both look awesome, right? But here in the Valley, you're as likely to go into a company and go, hey, how you doing? They go, we're crushing it. Like, oh my God, like, we're like last year, 600% year over year. That means when I come in and I talk to you next time and you've had a stumble, you might not have as good a story and I'm going to perceive you very differently. But if you come in and you say, well, so far employees seem really engaged, we're not having any trouble hiring, the people retention's really high, we're really building something that matters here, the next time I come in, if you tell me that again, I'm going to believe that you're really building something great. But if you give me all these peaks and valleys, right, I'm going to actually, through hyperbole, I'm going to get very skeptical of your company. There's another thing that's happening here, and that is in this valley and in many companies, we're optimizing for one type of currency. That's financial currency. Financial currency is controlled by a lot of things that are big systems beyond our control. We may or may not be in charge of our financial currency at all times. There could be recessions, there could be challenges, bubbles can pop, all kinds of things. But other types of currency, relationship currency, value currency, social currency, are really important to think about when shaping a culture, because you can have more control of them. They are more intrinsic to your company than some of these external things. I won't name names, but there was a company a year ago or so that got into a lot of trouble and stepped in it a couple of times. The media had a heyday with it. All kinds of people downloaded their apps, but they were still talking about, we're super pumped, we're crushing it, sort of screaming like that. boy, if they had been humble at that time and said, look, this is a stumble, but we're learning from it, and not gone to this like extreme version of what a culture is supposed to be, I think they would have kept a few friends that they ultimately lost. Has anyone here heard of a book called The Alliance by Reid Hoffman? And oh, I see a smile. Have you read it? You like it? It's brilliant, yeah. The Alliance, Reid Hoffman, Chris Ye, and Ben Casnocha, I think it's pronounced. Casnocha, thank you. Highly recommended, and I have 5 minutes. Great. Great. Look for the hiding places. We all have them. And this is something I'm paying a lot of attention to. I think there are words that people use that signal they're hiding from their best productivity inside a culture. They'll say things like, I can do it as soon as somebody does that. They make excuses for what they're doing. These are the hiding places. Oh, another thing is when people talk about frustration, they're creating hiding places. And I would say, invert your hiding places. If people are talking about frustration, remind them that frustration is a form of intelligence. It tells them something might sound right, but doesn't feel right, or they know something, they know we do it this way, but something could be better. Use that frustration to say, what are we going to do to solve this problem? What are your 5 best ideas for it? When people are making excuses, what they're doing is they're setting up a future condition where they're planning to fail, whether they know it or not, or at least creating an escape clause where they could fail, but they can go back and say, remember I told you that we didn't have these resources and so forth, that's why we failed. Those are hiding places in culture, and if you look for the hiding places and eliminate them, you can get a lot more value, creativity, and contribution, not to mention accountability out of people. There's a very cute hiding place. Make transparent the new black. That thing I said when you talk about hiding places with employees, make sure you own that as you lead your culture. Say what's working. Say what isn't working. Put your stats out there about retention and say, you know, we're keeping, the average retention now is 2.6 years. We'd really like to get people staying for more than 3 years. How can we make that happen? So be very open with what's happening with your company, where you're heading. When times are tough, transparency and openness is a proven way to keep good employees, much more so than hiding facts, obfuscating that, or being in your own hiding place. Go with the flow, and I want to say something really important here. Going with the flow does not mean be passive. The opposite is true. Going with the flow actually takes a tremendous amount of discipline, focus, and commitment to staying on a path. We are not in charge of everything in this. Forces are moving all around us. Yeah, forces are moving all around us, and really staying that path and holding to it as the flow is moving with us is a really important part of culture. And I think one of the best ways to do that is to know, design, and communicate your maps so that everybody knows where you are moving and can hold that path even as forces are flowing around you. And live in the is. We all live in reality, and this is kind of a mirror to what I just said, but keeping a strong eye on reality and not faking yourselves out like, okay, but as soon as this changes, we'll be back into that growth wave, or, you know, as soon as the world adjusts itself to our expectations, then things will be good again. That is not the way to run a business. So live in the is and be very aware of reality. Stir it up. Plan surprises for your people. Run experiments at the company. See what happens if everybody sits in a different desk, you know, 1 day a week. Etsy is a company that's fantastic with this. They provide rotations for their engineers so that they can do a 2-week or 2-month, I think it is, rotation swap with other engineering companies, where an engineer from Etsy goes over and sits with a completely different company, not a competitor, but, you know, a completely unrelated company. They do an engineering swap, and at the end everybody goes back to their jobs. But the cognitive learning that happens during those times and the engagement in new ecosystems through that experiment is really meaningful to Etsy as a company. A better picture for Stir It Up, but that's good. Back to Stir It Up. And then diversify. And diversify, you know, these birdies are really cute, but they're all sitting on the same fence, right? They may look different. What you want to do is you want to look for people who have similar values and similar whys and similar passions. And what they look like above those values and what they've done to get to that point where they're interviewing with you or working for you does not matter nearly as much as the values that unify them and hold them together. Build for those values, and everything that happens above the surface will take care of itself. And in fact, I work with one young entrepreneur, and we were talking the other day, and he told me about a situation he was in. He's mixed race, and he said a situation he was in. He goes, "I'm pretty sure that guy gave me the comment because of race." And I go, "Why race? What does race have to do?" He goes, "Well, you know race. He race, like me, race." And I looked at him. I go, "You race?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah," like it had never occurred to me. So I mean, we want to be in the sort of world where we're so connected with our values, right? And so connected with people that we don't even notice who they are on the outside, but what we're really connected and committed to is what they are on the inside. More diversity, that was a really nice picture. I want to tell you, I'd really love to invite you to stay in touch. When I thought about this talk, I thought it would be a little more crisp and structured than it would be, but it turned out it was sort of conversational and organic. I really hope that that worked for you and it was okay, but I do hope that my intention was achieved and that you're thinking more about really the people as you hear about all of the ways to develop them that you hear today. So a couple of things really quickly. I'd love to have you follow me on Twitter or Medium. Also, I'm launching a company sometime in the next month. It's going to be a very, very, very humble MVP of a concept I've been developing called Karma Hacks. And Karma Hacks is based on the why, that we all want to get better, and that tiny steps day by day help us do that. So we're looking at things in career, self-confidence, and well-being, and providing daily micro lessons that help us learn new habits and new ways of becoming who we want to be day by day. So thank you. I hope this was useful for you, and I really thank you for the opportunity to speak at Culture Summit.